Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I've had a day and a half here. Today's Wednesday, February 18th. Many of you might notice you got a notification, if you got a notification for this video, and they immediately copyrighted it. And it was because there was a clip of Trump doing some gag show, maybe with Saturday Night Live or something else, who gives a shit. And he doesn't want to wait, so he buys this woman's car. And then she has kids in the car. He doesn't want to wait for the kids to get out of the car. So he buys these kids, they're young kids, toddler age. And he drives off with the kids, and, it didn't age well given him. I mean, which I'm going to get into this video. Everyone who voted for him and supported him is coming to terms with this, that they voted for an evil, demonic pedo and all the rest of it, which, many of us already knew for years that Trump was a piece of shit, but, some people had wishful thinking. And so I'm going to cover that throughout the video. I can't show you the clip, but you might have already seen it already. It's not that great. And also, I mentioned how Trump is so cheap. He was buying these things at an exorbitant rate, but he was always, cash strapped, and, he's more performative. The other thing is, at the end of the video, I talk about having I was in the middle of doing my voiceover at the end of this video this morning, and my heart just started to race. And, I've been going to this alternative medicine person and, this whole clinic, and I went Tuesday, and I felt really good about it. I felt I was getting better. I haven't had an irregular heartbeat now in a week, maybe one or two. It's dissipated. But my heart started to race, and then it just wouldn't stop. And that went on for about an hour, and then it decreased, but it was still high. So I went and got an appointment with this alternative healthcare thing. And, I went and got tested. I'm getting extra testing. And, I already had some testing done, and the guy said there's no damage to my heart from whatever's going on. So it's, but I do have high cholesterol, and I have some, artery stuff, and, and my heart's still beating a little fast. But I've got like a heart thing hooked up to me for a week, and it's already bugging me. So I'm just fucking. So, anyways, I'm just gonna do this brief introduction, but things are looking up from whatever this morning. It wasn't, it seems to be something that's just passing. I went and I did this there's an acupuncturist there, and she, put in the needles for my heart, and I was just miserable. She was like, usually you go to sleep. They leave the lights off, and they leave the needles in, and you go to sleep, and, whatever. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it a half hour. Like, I was just miserable. Restless, but, at the last 5 minutes, it was better. And then and my heart rate had gone down, and I just felt, I've turned a corner. So, that's what I got going on. I'll talk about this more maybe tomorrow. I just want to get this video out there. No reason for people to comment and worry. And, I'm older now, and I'm going to have health issues. And, I'm just letting people know in case I stop making videos all of a sudden. You guys will know why. But, I'm working the problem. I'm changing some things. And I was already doing a lot of things already, so it should be fine. But the good news is there's no heart damage. So that's, positive. Anyways, I'll talk about this more in a, upcoming video. And here's a video I made already. Okay, so this is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and this is Jillian Michaels. This video was recommended. Someone else had clipped this thing, and I wanted to get a longer version of the clip, but here it is here.
The discharge petition, and then that ripened the discharge petition after 7 days, and we voted on that bill. Here's the interesting part. Okay, there were only 4 Republicans, only 4 of us that signed that discharge petition. Thomas Massey, myself.
I don't know why are you using this video format? Whatever.
Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace. Now, what was happening in the background for months leading up to when we finally got it released is we were getting pressure from the White House. We were getting pressure from the speaker. Do not take your name off this discharge petition. And we're like, why? We're talking about the Epstein files.
The Epstein files we're talking about.
This is the ultimate promise This is the ultimate way to provide transparency. This is the ultimate way to take it to the deep state.
Take it to the deep state.
And expose a whole criminal cabal of rich, powerful elites that I believe control everything. And guess what? Come to find out, they do.
They do. Look at Jillian.
And
they do. She said it. They do. They do. Jillian said it. They do. Where is the thing here? Let's go back here. 101 here. Right here.
come to find out, they do.
They do.
And
They do. They
you know,
do.
so we're like, why? So in the meantime, President Trump is calling it Epstein, the whole thing a hoax.
Yeah.
He's calling it a Democrat hoax. He won't have anything to do with the women. He still refuses to have anything to do with these women.
This is keeping it real. It's Keep It Real with Jillian Michaels.
So this whole thing is building. The women are saying President Trump did nothing wrong. They still say this. President Trump did nothing wrong.
I know.
Their attorney says President Trump, Donald Trump's the only one that helped us. And guess what? That came out in the Epstein files, that he reported Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
So but Donald Trump is fighting it. President Trump is fighting it. President Trump is yelling at me. The White House is putting pressure on Nancy Mace. They take Lauren Boebert in a skiff. I don't even know what they said to her in there.
What did they say to Lauren Boebert? What did they do to her in the skiff?
They are attacking Thomas Massie, nonstop attacking Thomas Massie. And then one day I get a phone call from the president in September, and he is so mad at me. And he's yelling at me, and he's angry at me. And the fact that he's like, you're supporting Rand Paul Jr., and he's chewing me out for signing my name on Thomas Massie's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And I'm trying to tell him, Mr. President, they say you did nothing wrong. Right. This needs to come out. Right. And so we're having this argument.
Okay, so I want to just correct that part. Like, fucking, that's retarded. Because Trump, like I said before, there was a police chief that was retired from Palm Beach that obviously was friends with Trump. And he said that there was a report that Trump called in about Epstein in 2006. Now, if Trump did that, Trump knew about this for years, and he was pissed at Epstein, and, maybe he was trying to, whatever, rat him out that way. But more than likely, this never happened, right? Which I said, because Trump isn't bragging about it. He didn't bring it up. He didn't. He said that he broke up with Epstein in 2004 because Ghislaine Maxwell was poaching people from Mar-a-Lago to work for Epstein. But that turned out not to be true because they were still corresponding in 2006. They had a dispute over a land deal. And so this was never about... And if Trump did call the police chief, then he knew about the girl stuff, right? And so the reality of the fucking thing is that's a bullshit thing because Trump is clearly compromised, which I've known for years. But aside from that, her talking about the deep state and the rest of this stuff here.
He tells me on this phone call, he's like, Marjorie, my friends will get hurt.
That's it. That's it. I mean, that is it. Obviously, that's it.
Okay, that's not it. Fucking Jesus Christ. Okay. It's not it. Jillian, it's not it. Trump is compromised. He had to know. And Jesus Christ, you guys still won't let it go. But, I mean, at least she moved a little bit. Marjorie Taylor Greene did a little bit. Of course, not enough, right? But here's the thing. I went back and I was trying to find a video that I made about this because I knew that I had clipped this picture, which I'll show you in a minute, the one I used, that bloodthirsty font. I made that picture on July 10th, 2012. And the picture was from February, an article that was in February, because you can see the article there, it stated, which I'll show you that in a moment. So I'm like, I wonder what I said in that video, right? And I searched my videos, and I had deleted the video. And then I went through various hard drives. I spent over 2 hours doing this shit, right? That's how far, that's how much work I'll put in to saying to everyone, I told you so. But I eventually found the video on an old computer, but it was in a format that I couldn't transfer to my Apple. And that's a whole nightmare thing that I don't even need to discuss. But I used my phone, and I copied the video. The video was about Jared, right? But let me show you that here. So here's the picture here. We'll come back to that. But this video, I covered a whole host of stuff, right? Starting off with Jared and fucking remember he was sexual abuse stuff for him, and then the Queen, her stuff. There's a whole stuff with the Queen and these kids from Canada that just disappeared, Native American kids. All the kids that were buried in these mass graves in Canada. That's a whole fucking story there. From Freemasonic bullshit, her Freemasonic nurse and all that shit that she has. And then, these other images. There's going back to that one there. So Prince Charles, King Charles now, it was fixing up Dracula's castle in Transylvania, right? Vlad the Impaler, because they are related to them. They're direct descendants of Dracula. In Romania, I think it is. I guess that's Transylvania. So like there's shit like that, right? Fucking, like all this stuff here. So again, this is 11, 10 and a half years ago. Still there, Prince Charles, being Eyes Wide Shut parties, all this stuff, right? Queen, we're the Queen, these people, the kids there, all of it. And then the Franklin scandal, which was the Boys Town thing for Washington, D.C., Amy Berg's movie. So, like I used to cover this quite a bit because I worked in, this is, the whole thing with Joe Paterno, Penn State, all this stuff. Because I knew a shit ton about this because I worked with sex offenders. There's the assault cycle, which I used to talk about all the time. I deleted this video because of Pizzagate. And they were, all the shit that was happening with that. Like, so, all the censorship. But I had all this stuff years ago, right? And, and I had the stuff with Donald Trump, which we'll get into in a moment. And so I was just learning about Jeffrey Epstein back then. Again, this is in 2015, July, when this video came out. I think it was July 11th or 13th. And Jimmy Savile, of course, this guy. All of it. So this was an all-encompassing video. And let's get to the part here about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. See, there's the beginning of it here, and then I have the audio coming up here. Okay, so I was using an inferior microphone. This is back, I was in India, right? Going through fucking hell in my own life, the divorce and the hell shit that was happening. This was a really tough year for me, and, just in lots of ways. I was using an inferior microphone, and then I taped it with my phone off the computer, so the audio is not great, as are the pictures because of that, but again, it's in a bad format, and I don't know how to change it. I have Premiere Pro on that computer, and it formatted the video, but not the audio. Also, that Jeffrey Epstein bailed out Prince Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, who's had financial issues, and he gave her a large chunk of money. So you have these pedophiles. These royals are indebted to these pedophiles. Okay, so this is where I first learned about, I was just learning about Jeffrey Epstein. There's Alan Dershowitz and all these people. At 5 o'clock, you see Donald Trump in his quote. And then I looked up his quote. I found it, in this other thing here. But, again, 10 and a half years ago, July of 2015. Again, this guy was a convicted pedophile. So this just the list goes on and on. These ties are all intertwined. You see it over and over again. All of these people, it's within politics, within celebrity, within royalty, within the wealthy. You see this condition over and over again where the people are connected to sexual abuse and pedophilia. All right, when I was pulling screenshots, I found a variety of interesting quotes about Jeffrey Epstein. This one I wanted to draw attention to is from Donald Trump, and he says, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life." That was from Donald Trump in 2002, presidential candidate Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton and the Clintons have been tied to this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, as well. He was a strong supporter and donor to Hillary's run for president in, I believe, 2008. So, you would think this would come up. Here's a guy who's connected strongly to two presidential candidates and former President Bill Clinton, as well as to the royal family. You think this is newsworthy? You think that people might be interested in this, the scandal of it, big money and sexual abuse. I mean, if you think of some of the things that have become public, some of the news stories, this is a much bigger news story in many different ways. So this shows you where they're not going to discuss this. This is a power player, this guy Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know how he got busted and served time in the first place, but clearly people don't want this to be a major news story, or it would be. It's got all the things that would make a very viral news story. And of course, we shouldn't forget about their connection to Satanism. Now, I saw this thing on Prince Andrew, I don't know, Okay, so we'll stop there. I would make the video public again, but again, it's not uploaded, and I have a process that I have to go through. I have some sort of, formatting issue. Like it's in a fucking old format. I mean, the videos were inferior back then, but either way, interesting stuff, and I covered all of it, right? And I certainly wasn't the only one, but most of those people have disappeared now. Like, that's what's happened to that level of people in the truth community. And so this is pre-Pizzagate. When I was asking the questions, why isn't this fucking news, right? You had a guy in Jeffrey Epstein that was connected to both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And of course, we know about the connections now. We know a lot more now than we did then. But it didn't come up at all. Like, this never fucking came up, right? All the other things, remember, Jimmy Savile was just a big story then, too, as I was covering. That I'd covered recently, right? And so 10 years ago, this could have come up in that election. That these guys both had connections to this fucking guy. He was, still alive at the time, right? He'd been released from jail. And he was not yet friends with Deepak Chopra, right? And so, Master Charji had just passed away in the Sajmarg, system. And Kamlesh Patel, who's now, the piece of shit that is friends with Dodgy, which I covered, in my last couple of videos. It's a comment about this I want to get to at the end of this video. Hopefully I will and not forget. But, this was it, right? This was all these things, right? It checks all the boxes. And so a few things about it. Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene still trying to excuse Donald Trump. And he's just covering for his friends. He's just loyal to his friends. And he didn't do anything wrong because some police chief said he reported him. And she's so stupid, Jillian Michaels and the rest of them, they're so retarded or they're so compromised that they don't say, well, if he did report him, then he knew about it. And he knew about it for years. Right? Like, when did he know about it? He just found out in 2006, right before Jeffrey Epstein was getting busted. And so there's three options there, and none of them are good for Trump. Number one, that Trump realized Jeffrey Epstein was getting busted, so he went to the police chief and said, let's file a report so it makes it look like I said something, which I don't think happened because Trump hasn't brought it up. But, Trump said he was a terrific guy in 2002, and he had known him for 15 years, and he didn't know this thing about him that all these other people did, that they were all partaking, especially when he said they both shared love of beautiful women. So, no, come on, he knew. He fucking knew all along. He's a fucking part to it. He was a part of it. He's a creep, and he's a fucking piece of shit, right? He's a guy with no fucking moral compass, and, all of it. And he's worried more about his friends than the victims. Like, he admitted that to Marjorie Taylor Greene. My friends will get hurt by this. But he's got his names mentioned more than anybody else. So, he's only concerned about himself, right? Like, he's throwing his friends under the bus. I mean, she could figure that out now, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump is saying, in that video yesterday, when he was asked about, Howard Lutnick, he said, well, the one person who didn't go to the island was Donald Trump, and I hope you guys will start reporting that. And then he said this other thing about some guy named Wolf who, created this thing with Jeffrey Epstein to screw Trump in the election, all this stuff. All he cares about is clearing his own name. He doesn't give a shit about his friends. He doesn't give a shit about those people. He throws people under the bus all the time. In that movie, The Apprentice, he had this guy, Cohen, who taught him everything he knew about being a prick. He was the apprentice to this guy, Cohen, right? Roy Cohn. He was a gay Jewish lawyer. And when the guy got AIDS, Trump like fucking, turned on him, right? Kicked his lover out of his hotel. I mean, Trump called the one kind of, one of the highlights of the movie is called The Apprentice, right? It's on Amazon Prime. One of the highlights is he called AIDS gay cancer, right? And when Roy Cohn was dying of it, eventually he brought him back in, right? There's a scene in the, spoiler alert. He brings him back into the fucking fold. Trump is like, Roy Cohn propped him up. Like he saved his business. He saved his, he got Trump out from under the thumb of his father. This is, again, there's some things that are obviously embellishment there. But he brings him back in and he gives him a couple of cufflinks that he says are diamond. And Ivana goes, he said, the guy Roy Cohn sitting next to Ivana, he's dying of AIDS, he's in a fucking wheelchair. He's got these cufflinks. He goes, look at what Donald did for me, after they've had this bad fight and falling out. And Ivana said, he's cheap. Those are fucking, those are fake. That's Kubrick zirconium. Right? It's fucking. And so, again, whatever the stuff is, Donald Trump doesn't care about fucking people, right? But in all this, there's a couple different kinds of people that make content like this. In terms of it's either, there's people who evolve, like you've moved through it and your perspective changes. You start off with the remedial perspective. Oh, there's these evil deep state fucking elitists who are controlling everything. And, there's some good guys out there fighting them, like the deep state theory, or, we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. And there's all the sheeple that are getting in our way. This whole fucking narrative, right? But if we just wake everybody up, the good people can take over again from the bad people and save the system. It's a very remedial understanding of what's going on because everyone's compromised. Everybody is a part of the system. And, everybody kind of knows about it, at least on a spiritual level, about it subconsciously and a little bit and kind of the conscious level. But if you had a choice between losing your lifestyle and having this system collapse, because that's the only way to get rid of it, there's no fixing it. It's the system's 100%. Everything in it, even the good things, come from a dark place, right? They come from a place that goes against God's will, right? So there's no fixing it. There's no changing it. And we're all a part of it. Like, we're all contributing. Like, it's easy to say, oh, we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. Yeah, well, they're worse people than we are, but they're doing things we would never do to keep a system going that we're all depending on. So there's that too, right? But, you go through these various stages. And if you're evolving, then, if you found out about something like I did 10 and a half years ago, then your perspective changes. Now, there's people like Alex Jones who got worse. Like, he was always a shill, but he actually got worse over time. And he consistently gets worse, because he's a shill, right? So he's that person. And then there's people who are making the same videos. They haven't changed since they, so-called woke up, whether they're making videos or not, they're still locked in. They haven't gone to the left-right paradigm. But to those of us who evolved, and if you guys have watched my videos, you've seen that there's an evolution in my understanding of things and the way I present information. My videos are getting better. And so, for those people who stood still 10 years ago, sure, or 15 years or whenever they knew about this, 8 years ago, yeah, those people aren't worth really listening to because they're still stuck at the same place. I don't begrudge people waking up now and whatever, is organic about what Marjorie Taylor Greene's doing here and whatever's going on with Jillian Michaels and these other famous people. And I don't begrudge some, movement, but the movement has to be grounded in the sense that there are people who've been doing this a lot longer and we're way fucking ahead of you, right? We're way ahead of you. There's this famous stories of Kobe Bryant at the Olympics with these other, great NBA players, and that Kobe Bryant would get into the gym at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, he'd wake up, and he'd be, practicing and doing these things. And he would say to people, I'm already up earlier than you, and I've already put in hours today. But what about the cumulative hours that I'm putting in over time? And so by the time that, I've already put in so many more hours than you before the season's even started, and then all these things, practicing, right? And so, this idea of being way ahead, because when somebody starts off with a head start and a lead, and then, a different perspective. Also, It's how people are able to handle and process this information. So I worked as a clinician and a counselor with kids who had been sexually abused and then abused other kids, right? And so I was already aware of this. And my ex was somebody who survived, was a victim of her parents, her dad particularly, of sexual abuse. So I lived through this personally, right? I understood, the effects of this, and I understood what was out there, like just the way people would, the depravity that people would engage in these fucking things that are horrific and destroy lives. And, it's a plague on humanity. Like just that one thing, and that's not the only thing that's out there. Like physical and sexual and emotional abuse is just one part of the fucking, horror show that is humanity. So I was aware of that. And I didn't have any connection to the Democrats or Republicans. I didn't really believe in America. When you're somewhat detached from, I don't have patriotism. I don't have some I love America in terms of, the good things, right? I mean, I'm not talking about the lifestyle, beautiful country, and it's what I'm familiar with. But I've never bought into the system. Like I've never had some, pie in the sky view. I've always known that people are liars, and of course, when you're a little kid, it's less, important that you know that stuff. But as I grew up and my teenage years and as a young adult, I could see that there was, levels of corruption. There's good things too. People engage in both good and bad behavior. We all have a potential saint. We have a soul and inside of us and an ego, and there's a battle. And, in most cases, the ego is winning in a landslide, like each person's personal battle between their ego and their soul. Most people, the soul has been disempowered and negated, and the ego is running amok, right? People can kind of see that. And so, I was aware of all that. So when I did this video back then, I had a more comprehensive understanding because I'm not thinking, Donald Trump is better than Hillary Clinton, and, he's he's a good guy. I'm sure he didn't do anything with Epstein, right? Even though he said this quote, right? Like I understood back then that Donald Trump was Epstein, and I didn't even fully know what that meant yet, right? It was just the story was just sort of coming out, and it really wouldn't come out till years later with the Pizzagate stuff and the rest of the stuff that happened. Post Pizzagate, Pizzagate hadn't even happened yet, and then the whole thing about fake news and all that shit, right? And then all this the censorship that happened, all this stuff that happened after 2015, 16, and then the stuff with Caitlyn Jenner, right? All that shit hadn't even happened yet. And I was aware of all these things and how all these people were connected to depraved fucking shit, right? The people in power, the people in, with money, the people in celebrity, Hollywood, the Hollywood and, the modeling industry and politicians and Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is clearly a part of that club, enjoys being a part of that club. And he said to Marjorie Taylor Greene that this will compromise my friends. This will hurt my friends. My friends. So he's friends with all these pedophiles, right? So he didn't do anything. But my friends. So you're friends with pedophiles and who partook with Jeffrey Epstein, and you're worried about them and not the victims and not everybody else, right? So how does that make him any better? Like just what he's admitted to her. Like he doesn't want to admit it's going to hurt him. He doesn't want to admit to her that he's a part of it, right? He's like, well, my friends, fucking, yeah, you're known for your loyalty, you piece of shit, you backstabbing piece of shit, right? So when do people get access to this information? Like the information just flows through, by meditative process. I've talked about that, and I can accept it and process it and deal with it here and, put it together in comprehensive videos. And of course, over time, there's going to be a deeper understanding. With anything, you do something for a job, and if you're doing it the right way, you're getting better at it, right? If you're not just mailing it in and just, doing the same thing over and over again, but if you're evolving personally and your consciousness is changing and you're, in terms of your spiritual evolution, then, there's going to be some outcomes to it, right? Where you're going to, you're going to get better at stuff. You're going to master stuff. You're going to, your perspective is going to be fine-tuned, and your content is going to be improved. So I don't, mind all these dumb fucks coming in with, their celebrity bullshit people like, Megyn Kelly and, Tucker Carlson, these right-wing, dumb fucks, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and, the rest of it. But, there needs to be an understanding that there's, you guys are in kindergarten. In terms of spirituality, I mean, you're in nursery school, like, maybe kindergarten. But in terms of, the truth community, you're in kindergarten. And, there's been so those of us who've been here for a while, and we've evolved over time. There's other levels to this thing, right? Like, you didn't discover it. You didn't, I didn't discover it, right? And this had been around for a long time. My brother was doing truther stuff, long before YouTube, when this was a fringe stuff about the Federal Reserve and things. I mean, there was this understanding about this stuff, and certainly about spirituality and the divinity within you. This stuff has been around for, thousands of years. And, many of us were doing this in past lives, so it's, becomes more the transition and the ability to adapt to it and to take advantage of it is easier now because there's some precedent for it, right? And so there is a higher here, right? There's a, to these Epstein people are just waking up now. Yeah, this is great. I'm not, great waking up. It's, it's not, whenever you can, it's good. But there's more to it, right? And there's, and those of us who've been doing it, we can tell you that, what you're doing now, first of all, trying to wake people up, that doesn't work. Still believing that there's a good and a bad and a left and a right, and a conservative and a liberal. That's, I actually had a quote. Let me find the quote. When I first had the idea to do this last night, I said, as long as you remain trapped in the confines of a binary system, the truth is not available to you. I'm going to make that the title of this video. And so I almost forgot about that, and I just was sucked. But as long as you remain trapped in the confines of a binary system, the truth is not available to you. They've sold you a left and a right. They're controlling your, they're giving you a good and a bad. They're giving you two choices. And, this is a divide and conquer type situation. And we all can kind of see it to whatever degree. It's there for everyone to see. And, it's not truth. Like, you're never going to find the truth. You have to break free from the system. You got to break free from your goofy patriotism bullshit and your American values and, not American values, but your belief in the American system, your belief in the American dream and America's good guy and all that bullshit. Like, all the stuff you've been indoctrinated, your religion, all of it. If you don't confront your indoctrination, your religion's compromised. If everything, that it starts with your religion, really, more than anything else. Not that it starts with Jesus. There's a difference between Jesus and your religion, right? Like, Jesus is an example, as are so many other people that have, become spiritual and, have found the divinity within them. But it's, it's an example of something you have to do. There's no, there's no fucking heaven and hell promise, these things that they've given you, these bullshit things. You have to work, you have to evolve, you have to change, you have to aspire to raise your consciousness and have a relationship with the divinity that's within all of us, right? Find your soul's path and embrace it. These are things that people have to do. Is your purpose here. What your ego thinks your purpose is has nothing to do with what your true purpose is, right? So anyways, so there's that. Like, it's all there for people to see, and, people want to remain in a level where, they feel safe, where there's still a chance that the system can be divinized or made whole, and, the good guys can win. And, Trump was just doing it for his friends and, his pedophile friends. I mean, it's not his fault his friends are all pedophiles, right? Anyways, all right. So there's that. I got a bunch of other stuff to get to. Let's get to it here. Okay, so this woman is debunking Erica Kirk's being a pedo. I got more tweets from somebody. One of my viewers sent me some more tweets we'll get to in a moment. I just want to say about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. One of the people who wasn't really in the files as far as I know, and certainly not being talked about, is Joe Biden. Not that Joe Biden wasn't a creep. We saw what a creep he was, but he just never made it into Epstein's orbit. And so he could have released all these things, right? But he didn't, because the Israel factor and the Democrat factor, right? So this is, all encompassing. So the only thing that you could really derive from this, I mean, the fact that this was out there, like, they knew about Epstein. Like, I knew about Epstein in 2015. They knew about Epstein in 1998, right? Like, these people all knew about his shenanigans, his fucking abuse, I don't even want to say shenanigans because that's a mild word, his fucking depravity, right? They all knew about it because they all were doing it. They all knew people who were doing depraved things. if it wasn't this, it was something else, right? So these are a group of depraved people that all know they're doing depraved shit, and Epstein is just one of those people, right? Like you think about him as being the worst one, but he's just one of, I mean, whatever. Each person has their own vices, and they're all aware of it. If they're not aware of it, they're not in the club, right? Everyone in the club is aware of it, and so they knew about this stuff, and they weren't talking about it because if you talk about Epstein, then you have to talk about Harvey Weinstein, or any number of these people, right? And each one of these people is, connected. They all are compromised. It's like, they have these parties, and there's this, shared idea that nobody could release the information because it would take down the whole government, it would take down the system. And so if one person gets outed, then everyone gets outed, right? But the problem is Israel doesn't give a shit about that. They don't care if, they obviously do care if America gets taken down, but they can threaten you as a foreign government, Mossad can, and make it sound like they don't give a shit if they, this is a chain reaction that leads to the collapse of American civilization, right? When they find out that every person is, and you don't know that as a person if they're blackmailing you, and so this is all encompassing. Like even 2015, I knew about all these different storylines and all these things, whether it was Penn State or whether it was Jared from Subway, the Queen of England, and Jimmy Savile, or the Franklin scandal. I mean, I was covering all that shit back then, right? And then they said you couldn't because of fucking Pizzagate. Like I stopped covering it. They stopped people from even talking about it. They shut that shit down, right? They shut that shit down a bunch of times. It just kept on coming back up. Okay, so this woman is debunking the stuff with, well, let me just finish what I was saying there. So, in this, the only thing you can understand is that the system is completely compromised, and the people running it are fucked in the head, and they're just messed up people. And like, there's just one solution, and that's the system collapses, and then we all, those of us who can take accountability for our part in this shitty system and work to building something better. Like, that's the only outcome. And nobody wants to hear that shit because, that means the end of all that we know, right? So here's...
The people that own the place that she's staying in meet their granddaughter, but her granddaughter also has a friend with her, which would be 15-year-old Jillian. But first of all, I think it's important to note what type of a teenager Jillian was, what type of content she was posting, and how Erica is interacting with her, right? So first of all...
So she's saying that this Jillian posted this Saturday drug-free zone. How are you going to get through life with all these marijuanas in your head? Mary Jane is a friend. I fucked her. And so she thinks the solution to saving Erica Kirk is to talk about how depraved Jillian is. Right? Like, this is...
Let's just start with the fact that she seems insanely lost. This girl is engaged in a lot of stuff that she really should not be. She is posting very inappropriate things.
I told her my dick was a bong, and she was all over it, right? So, so Erica Kirk meets this girl. She's staying in California, and her boyfriend's staying in some fucking Kentucky or some other place, right? So that's all, And then Erica Kirk meets the family that she's staying with, who she's renting from, and they have a granddaughter, and her granddaughter's friend is Jill. And Erica Kirk, she's saying, is trying to save her because she's going down a dark path, right? But this is the kind of person they target. Erica Kirk is clearly compromised. And, who knows how compromised she was back then, but obviously seems like a recruiting trip. And who do you recruit? At-risk kids, right? At-risk kids are the number one target of all these people. Runaways and kids on drugs and, kids that can easily be suicided or whatever, right? Lost kids. And this is what Jeffrey Epstein, these people did. Like, this is who they would recruit. These are easily targeted kids. Kids on drugs, kids who are lost, are looking for something, belonging. They can, whatever it might be, they're missing things. They don't have a support system to protect them. They don't have resources to go after you if whatever happens, right? And no one will miss them because they're lost, right? Like she said, they're lost.
giving references to a lot of partying, drinking, MJ use. She's referencing these types of.
So like this woman's outing her, stuff that she did when she was 15. Like this, she thinks this is a smart thing to do, is to talk about what a piece of shit Jillian was when she was 15 years old, right? And I don't know, what was that, 10 years ago? She's only 25 now. Now her tweets came out. I don't know if she shared them or whatever it is, and so she's saying this is fair game, but you're supposed to be a Christian, and this is like, she's saying that they left out all this other stuff, right? The people who comb through these tweets.
Exchanges with boys and her sexually explicit interactions with them.
So she was a whore? Like, what fucking, I mean, like, this is just, look at this wonderful Christian woman here.
This tweet here is just one example of multiple that I saw all.
Today I told my mom I had a fake ID so I could go to her birthday celebration at the bar. She responds, why didn't you tell me? We can go out now together. I mean, their mom's a piece of shit too.
Throughout her feed, you very much get the vibe that this girl does not have a lot of parenting going on in her life. She's being raised by a single mom, and it's very clear that her mom is giving the whole "I'm a cool mom, I'm
she has
your
a
friend,
picture
I'm
here
your parent"
too
type of vibe. Another thing that became very obvious very quickly is Jillian has massive body image issues and self-esteem issues. She is constantly posting that she is fat. She is posting pictures of very, very sick.
Okay, let's get to the, okay, here.
Responds, honestly wish I could say the same, LOL, but that's great for you.
Oh, here. So this woman posts a picture of Jillian, she's at least half naked. The girl has a thin black line posted across her top. And there's a black line there, might be clothing, I don't know. But, she's a young girl with this picture, and this woman's posted it, right? I mean, she's, she's she's trying to save Erica Kirk by throwing this young girl under the bus. But, like by posting this graphic picture. And skinny, young 15-year-old girl, I'm not showing you the picture here, but she's posting this on Twitter. Again, I mean, she's 25 now, but she was whatever she was back then. Like, just, you're doing all this to try to save it. Like, Erica Kirk's fucked anyway. Like, you're trying to prove she's not a pedo. Like, that's, but like, she's great everywhere else. Like, she's destroyed. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're fucking this fake Christian. I mean, what a piece of shit. Like, you're posting this stuff. Like, you're a caring person, and you're deciding to, show how great Erica was because Erica's trying to build up this girl as, body issues and self-esteem issues.
Same post, her friend literally says, I'm actually really okay with my body than having no fat on me whatsoever. And Jillian responds, honestly wish I could say the same, LOL, but that's great for you though, Jade. And it becomes clear that her body image issues start to latch on to Erica because Erica is modeling at this time. She's coming right off of being Mrs. Arizona. So she's in the pageant world. Obviously, Erica is a beautiful woman. And so she is constantly leaving comments saying how gorgeous Erica is, how pretty she is, how beautiful is, how she wants to look like her. She is constantly reposting her post multiple times throughout the day.
She's basically stalking her.
It becomes clear that Jillian is having an unhealthy obsession with Erica and is kind of stalking her a little bit online.
Holy shit! Like,
all of the interactions, pretty much like
you're just trashing this fucking
99% of the interactions are started by Jillian, by her either tagging Erica or reposting something of Erica's or commenting on one of her posts. Very rarely does Erica ever start an interaction with Jillian.
Except when she sent her chocolates on her birthday and she sent sexual tweets.
One of the other things that becomes very apparent very quickly is Jillian really likes to take autocorrect mistakes.
Okay, so see if we get to Erica Kirk's here. So,
a child, and she says, hold anything in mind, she has to correct it because it's an autocorrect. Literally see her reaction, here with the post saying, holy F, awkward moment when in autocorrects to my uncle, holy F. And so, of course, when this happens with Erica, she, of course, posts it. And these are the exchanges that people are absolutely losing their minds over. So she literally says, let me call you. Hold on, sweetheart. Give me a sex. Wow. She responds, okay, laughing. She says, sec, because she's clearly correcting because the autocorrect, messed up her words. So she's correcting it here. She says, sex too, but not from you, LOL, because, you're literally a child. And she says, holy shit,
Not from you, not because you're a girl, and not because I'm Christian, and whatever. I'm saving myself from marriage.
laughing emoji, you always make me laugh. And she says, I don't bat for the other team just yet. She's making a joke.
Yeah, you can't minimize that shit. You're saying that she's diving down into this depraved girl's world to save her. That's what you're trying to say, right? Like, fucking, there's no saving her. And you're just trashing the girl. Like, that's just a fucking wrong way to go about it, right? This was, I had searched for the tweets, and then I couldn't find anything that, I wasn't going to cover it. But then Candace Owens had that video of that girl who had clearer images of the tweets, and I left up the search. And so I was going to X out of it today. I saw these Twitter things. I was looking for other things that I had left up, and this was the video that was recommended. So this is going around on Twitter right now, where she's just hammering the fucking. We'll see if there's like any comments to this.
Clearly, this is her making a joke at correct situation. And again, this is something that Jillian highlights on her page. I forgot to tell you, correct texting situation happening that Jillian thinks is hilarious. Erica literally says, I forgot to tell you, hydrate tonight, no alcohol, don't eat a lot of salty foods, you don't want to look bloated. I'm guessing Jillian maybe had like an interview the next day, or she had clearly had something going on, and Erica's trying to give her like a pep talk here. Jillian responds, thank you. Erica immediately notices her mistake. I think it's because she thought she was talking to someone else, honestly. And she said, no alcohol. Really, Erica? Age recognition. Apparently I haven't had my coffee yet. Like,
wait, you left out twat waddle. you left out twat waffle. Why did you say twat waffle?
Making a joke about herself, calling herself a dingbat. And she's like, yeah, what the hell, Erica? She said, well, on that bite, again, had to switch it to no. Well, on that note, and then she literally says, damn you, Siri, come on, hashtag the struggle. Literally, she is saying that, like, Siri is not, like, she's probably doing talk to text, honestly.
Yeah, that's what she is doing.
Her talk to text is getting all...
But I don't think she mistook twat waffle.
Jumbled because it is not working correctly, and she very clearly is pointing out that this conversation is not going how she wants due to autocorrect. This is the next one that people are freaking out about, and they're freaking out about it as if Erica sent this to her, but she didn't. Jillian is posting this on her own free will, okay? And she just is tagging Erica in this. This is not something that Erica said to her. She literally says, thank you.
Well, you don't know if she didn't send it to her. You don't know if she sent it to her or not. Like, she combs to this girl all this shit here.
Erica, right? Why did Erica just send me this? A bunch of laughing faces. And she posts this emoji this Valentine's Day. I'm going to touch your butt. Okay, first of all, this is a joke from Finding Nemo where he's going to go up and I'm going to touch the butt. It's the boat, and he touches the boat with his fin to freak his dad out. Anyway, Erica, again, is not sending this to her that we know of. There's no proof that Erica actually did anything.
Okay, but did you think she's lying about this, right? Like, if she sent this to her and she posted it on Twitter, then, that would be the most logical thing. Either that or she's just making this up, right? So, again, I mean, Erica Kirk is unsalvageable. So, like, this is just, there's no way to pull these things back. No matter how much you shit over this 15-year-old girl and her stalking and obsession with Erica, right?
Thing here. This is just Jillian tagging her in something. It looks like trying to get a laugh out of her, trying to get a rise out of her of some kind. But Erica did not start this interaction or send this interaction in any way that we have proof of.
Well, we have proof of, other than her saying, hey, Erica, why did you send me this?
This is fully Jillian posting this on her own free will. What we do see from Erica is a whole lot of her trying to build this girl up. Here she says,
Okay,
She literally had posted a photo of making chocolate-covered strawberries with her friends previously, and so I think Erica just knew that it was something that she liked. It was something easy that she could have sent in the mail for her, and that's why she did that. It's not to be...
So she was stalking her, going through her posts, and finding that she likes chocolate-covered strawberries. It's just an innocent, nice little gift, right?
romantic and creepy. The girl just had already expressed that it was something that she liked, and literally the note that she sends to her for her birthday is the most innocent, platonic, again, trying to encourage her, build her up, build her self-esteem type of...
Okay. You know. So let me show you these other tweets here. So here are some of the comments. Candace actually spoke with the girl. This has not been debunked. Again, Candace speaking to the girl doesn't mean anything. I don't think that person understands, didn't maybe watch the video. LOL, you didn't debunk anything. You just added to the amount of evidence. Well, she did add some amount, maybe some context here. That was not debunked. You literally just shared your opinion. Good try. She tries to mix up message about give me sex. Who said that what? As she's describing that text, she makes it confusing. Which girl said what? That is still gross and pretty damning for Erica. I'm just so thoroughly disgusted that this was necessary. Continue to cover Erica, her children, and TPUS gay in prayer. Victim blaming is a weird flex and more like reinforced rather than debunked. You are doing yourself and Erica no favors. Why are you so hell-bent on destroying Erica Kirk? BS, real Candace Owens spoke to the girl who is now 27-year-old woman, and she agreed it was inappropriate. You are a really fucked up person. I wonder if you are a friend of Erica or something. You are a very sick lady, blaming the victim child and lying in your post as well. Hello, that's what these groomers do. Troubled kids are the easiest marks. Yes, exactly. I said that myself. And so, you got to think the way, if you're trying to save Erica Kirk, you can't. And if you're going to go out and say, all right, the only way to save her is to make it the other girl's, the 15-year-old girl's problem. So let's talk about her troubled past, her at-risk past. I guess she was 20. She's 27 now. And so, all that stuff is, again, it's just a bad look. Like, you can't, it's indefensible. What she says, people are going to see it a certain way. Certainly all the people that already think she's a piece of shit, and that's not going away anyhow, right? You're trying she's trying to save this young girl? Is that your fucking point? She's a really weird fucking person, and she's obviously connected to these same people, the same, the Epstein type people. Like, she's in that club with Trump and the rest of them, and she wants to be more in that club because she keeps on kissing their ass and going with the official story. Like, so, what? Like, what are you saving here? Like, what can you possibly save? But anyways, it gets worse here. Okay, so here are some more comments. People are combing through her shit now. My heart and this building have one thing in common: full occupancy with you in my life. I'm not sure who she's talking to there. I know the best restaurant in town, my place. And hi, I live across the hall from you. You sure look pretty through the peephole. This person writes peephole. Okay, so I guess there's more shit coming in from her. This is 3 minutes and 22 seconds long. It's a video. So these are all directed at this young woman named Sydney. And it seems like, they're dating or flirtatious or, whatever it is. Like, she likes to talk about, even if it's not, there's no sexual activity, she definitely flirts with these girls and uses flirtatious language. The debunking just took a major hit because there's a second girl here, right? Okay. Are you from the moon because your physique is out of this world? And Sid Stahl said, Erica Franze, alien. So this must be Sid Stahl, I don't know. All those curves would be with no brakes. Your court or mine? I'll show you my ace. Good, because the whole world is about to witness it. I'm not sure what that means. Are you Roger Federer's ground strokes? Because, baby, you are so elegant. And then a couple of peep eyes. So this was, I guess, another girl she was flirting with. Cuff or nah, 5 years to life, but parole if you're on good... Cuff me or nah, 5 years or life, or parole if you're on good behavior. Good thing I submitted my application 6 years ago. Your shirt looks a lot like my thoughts tied up with you. Baby girl, those long legs been running through my mind all day. This is when she was Erica Kirk, apparently. Um, like, this is when she's married to Charlie Kirk. She is in Franze here. Cuff me or nah, this whole thing. This We are not eventually dating, but she's the best boyfriend I've ever had. So this is another one. I guess she's crowning her. I don't know fuck what's going on. All right, so there they are holding hands. All right, so and they're making a heart up here, this stuff. I don't even know what all this. What's going on here? So like Erica Kirk is weird and fucking creepy and just, an old video showed up with an interview that she did. And I was like, oh my God, I want to watch this. And I clicked out of it because I didn't want to watch it, right? Because we don't need any more information about Erica Kirk. We already know she's like fucked. She's compromised. She's some kind of operative more than likely. Just based on what we can see, like she's not a good person and she didn't grieve properly and everything she's done since then. And, she's been damaged, right? Her brand is damaged. There's nothing that's more to see here. Like, people are debating, like, what else do you have to prove? Like, the people who are going to see have already seen. The people who can't see won't see. This is just like with everything else that I'm talking about here. But, I mean, she's never going to be anything. Remember when people were talking about her being vice president? Right? Like, her immediate mistakes that she made in the grieving process, the public grieving process, and not just, certainly the left, but many people on the right, many TPUS gay people, and then all the stuff in the war with Candace Owens. I mean, she can't be redeemed. Like people have made their mind up about her. And, they made up their mind about her when they heard her talk. The same thing happened to Kamala Harris, right? They wanted Kamala Harris to be, there was all these candidates. There were 20 candidates, and Kamala Harris they handpicked to be something. Like there was these, 2-night debates. The Democratic debates were broken up over 2 nights because they each had 10 candidates debating. And, 18 of the candidates or 15 of the candidates were just, they had no reason to be there other than they had no chance of winning the nomination or even being relevant. And then there was the, Pete Buttigieg. There was, of course, Joe Biden. There was Elizabeth Warren. There was Bernie Sanders and Nancy Klobuchar. And those were the candidates that won some. They made it to the primary. All the rest of them dropped out before the primary. And then, the first primary in New Hampshire and the caucus in Iowa. And the rest were gone by that. There was 5 candidates left, right? And Kamala Harris dropped out early, even though they handpicked her to be something. She started polling at 12%. And then she got, people started to take a look at her and they go, oh, we don't like this bitch. And these were all Democrats. The Democrats, she was polling under 1%. She couldn't get even 1% of the Democratic vote when Joe Biden was getting 20, right? Bernie Sanders was getting 15. These people were, she was getting less than 1% because people didn't like her, right? They did this with Hillary Clinton. They kept on propping her up. People didn't like Hillary. Hillary had more of a fan base of angry, feminists and women who, loved her or whatever because of Bill Clinton. But she, was just as unlikable. And Erica Kirk's in this state. It's always harder for women, to be likable. It's women have to, they have a much higher standard and things than men. And Erica Kirk has failed that test. She's not likable. There's nothing here. She has TPUS gay, which has been diminished. And she's hiding fucking out. Like, she's not even doing anything, right? She's barely posted on social media. If she does, she's, using Charlie and her kids. So there's nothing here. Like, people are Candace Owens got into this party long after her viewers wanted her to go after Erica. She was very supportive of Erica, even though she, hated the bitch for years. And now she's, like, finally got on board with this. And it's way too late. Like, you're just beating a dead fucking horse here, right? This weird stuff. And she had all these weird, bisexual things going on. She married a gay dude. Like, fucking weird shit going on there. TPUS gay, right? It's just TPUS gay. Okay, still Tuesday night. My wife and I went to our holistic doctor thing. We're going to go once a week. And I was in the waiting room. Like you go through these series of things they have there. They offer these various, wellness things. And I saw these videos. A lot of people were posting this video with Sean Ryan. There's a bunch of other videos from various other people who are right-wing people who are all attacking Trump. Like they're all shitting on Trump. The tide is turned. There's lots of Trump memes coming from the right wing. MAGA's imploding on itself. Whatever that dude's name is, Fuentes. He was posted something. I didn't really see that. I just saw what the description was, and he's talking about he's glad MAGA's, imploding. I don't know. So this guy had this to say.
I've been pretty quiet about Pam Bondi in front of Congress the other day talking about how the Dow's up to 50,000. Nobody gives a fuck. Because what you should be talking about is how you are going to investigate and prosecute any pedophiles that were running around on Epstein Island that you're affiliated with.
Okay, so, I'm going to get into this in the voiceover. And this is kind of like I told you so video. But, it's great you're getting here now. Like all these people. It's great you're getting here now. And, of course, the left was always there because they're a part of the left-right, thing. It's, well, let's get back to it. I want to talk about this in the voiceover.
But we didn't talk about that, did we? Oh, and what's the excuse? What was the excuse? Oh, if we prosecute everybody, the whole system would go down. Well, you know what that sounds like?
What does it sound like, Sean Ryan?
You know what that sounds like?
What?
That sounds like how Trump ran his campaign. Let's drain the swamp. Doesn't that sound a lot like draining the swamp?
Yeah, that was for first term when he didn't drain the swamp, and you guys knew he didn't drain the swamp, but you pushed him again. I don't know if this guy was a pro-Trumper, I assume, until now, especially the second term he was. He was first term and second term. And, he didn't say drain the swamp the second time he ran. He was having a revenge tour. He was going to go after fucking... It was clear what he was going to do in terms of that shit. He was much more about revenge than he was about draining the swamp, right?
It actually is drain the swamp served up to you on a fucking silver platter. But you're not going to take it, are you? You're going to protect pedophiles. You're going to protect pedophiles rather than go after them and hope that everybody's happy that the Dow hit 50,000. Are you fucking out of your mind?
Nope. And nothing's going to happen to them either. They're going to lose the midterms. That's the consequences. That's all it is. And that's not the consequences if he turned against Israel.
I guess the whole drain the swamp campaign promise was another fucking bullshit lie, huh? Man, the lies are stacking up fast.
Okay, so you knew he was a liar in the fucking beginning, right? You knew he was a liar. Like you guys didn't know he was a fucking liar. All right, so I got one more thing to show you, and then I want to get into my voiceover. Trump replaces Pam Bondi with a broom and a blonde wig, the Babylon Bee. So, and I guess he gave a press conference, which I have the video somewhere. I'll pull it up for tomorrow on my tomorrow video. And I think he's going to defend Christie, right? But this is hilarious. There's a bunch of memes I saw, some of which I'll share, whatever. Some of them I took pictures of, some of them I just laughed at. But, Trump is taking in the fucking chin. Like, I don't have a lot of liberal people that Twitter recommends to me. And so majority of the people are right-wing people or truthers. I don't even think there's that many truthers. I don't even know what I have on Twitter. I think it's just disgruntled MAGA. Let me switch over to the voiceover, and then I got a couple things to say there. Okay, so let me read my quote here. As long as you remain trapped in the confines of the binary system, the truth is not available to you. And so, all these things that I'm showing you today, and then showing you what I covered in 2015. And, the way that I gather information is reliant, everything that I do in life is relying pretty heavily on divinity. In the Sajmarg meditation, it's sort of blended together. It used to be, working real hard on the meditation, the practice, reading the books, and understanding the philosophy, and then it just sort of all swirled into, what I've become. So I don't talk about it or think about it so much, but it's become automatic. But when you have an internal connection with divinity, things can be made way easier. And if people would listen to the divinity within them, your life would be so much better. Like it just would be. I mean, from the standpoint that all the bullshit, stupid shit that you did, you wouldn't do that. Like when you are, if you become a saint or a spiritual person, saintly person, a spiritual master, you absorb more and more bullshit from the world. You have to take on more of the world's problems and, things like that. So, it isn't like you people who are spiritual are problem free, but the problems aren't self-inflicted, right? And so this is a self-inflicted problem because, in the remedial spiritual shit that I talk about here, the very, basic spirituality 101, the bullshit that I talk about here, just the things that I've covered and said, if people listen to me, or I had a wider audience, but even with that, people have to listen, they could have avoided this whole thing with Trump. Now, Trump may or may not have been elected, but all these people that thought Trump was going to make America great again, what the fuck, right? You believe that bullshit? Now, I don't know how many of these pundits actually believed it. I don't know if Sean Ryan and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene was a QB, right? She came in as a dumbass QB, and then she was a dumbass MAGA, and now she's still a Trump apologist when the guy's clearly a fucking creep, right? He's the worst. He's a demon. Like, Trump's a fucking demon, right? Like, he's kind of funny. He might be entertaining, and he might be better than some of the other politicians, but he's still a demon. Like Beetlejuice was funny. Beetlejuice was a comedy movie, but it's still about a demon, right? Just because he's an ass clown doesn't mean that Trump's an ass clown doesn't mean he's not a demon. He's a big ego person. He's an ego that's run amok, right? A demon isn't someone who worships that worships the devil or it goes against God. It's an ego that runs amok, like an ego that hijacks a soul, and it might be a powerful person, somebody who's got more influence, somebody's more intelligent, somebody's a little bit, had some spiritual capital or something, and then they go south and they turn into a demon and they have more power because they have more capacity, because they have more talent. They're more evolved than the average schmo, right? If you see that I was 10 years ahead of these people, and really more than that because of spiritual stuff, those of us who understood what Trump was and understood the left-right paradigm for what it is, and we, all of us who, said these things, and we're all different, we all have different abilities and levels. But if people had listened to us back then or now, all this, whatever's going on now, all this drama, yeah, of course, you'd be like, yeah, of course this happened. I mean, you guys who gave money to Trump and supported Trump and had fights with your relatives over Trump and Biden and all the dumb liberals who fought, all these people all said about Trump and Biden. All these people who can't talk to their can't, have a civil conversation at Thanksgiving now. All that shit, it's fucking meaningless. Doesn't matter. Your beliefs have no bearing on what's going to happen. Your beliefs, it's your actions that come from beliefs, but nothing's going to change the system, right? Your beliefs will, help you if they're spiritual beliefs, but everything else is just wasting time. Think about all the time and energy and resources been wasted on this fucking Trump elected, all this bullshit that people think about, talk about, right? I mean, even now with the Erica Kirk thing, I'll mock the thing, but think about the raw investment of time and energy for what? Like you think she's going to jail, and you think that's going to make you feel better, right? Every one of these motherfuckers is going to die, right? Some of them, like Trump's, like 10 years from dying. Biden, they're not. I mean, they're going to die. Like you're not going to give a shit then, right? But it'll be something else or something. People want to be distracted. It'll be somebody else or something else they hate and all these things. Like, it's a total fucking waste of time. There was something I also wanted to say about the Erica Kirk thing. Oh yeah, it's about how she says weird shit that no one else says, right? When she said, I don't bat for the other team just yet, and those other things that seem to be, indicating an openness to girl on girl bullshit, right? So, it doesn't track with Erica Kirk's persona. Like, Erica Kirk is really flirtatious and touchy-feely with dudes, right? She did that with J.D. Vance and the fucking hug. She did it with her co-star in the behind-the-scenes, this behind-the-scenes mini doc about the making of that music video she did. And she had a co-star in that named Tyler, and she was all over the guy. She was like, gave him a high five and a hug. She's very huggy. She's like she said, I'm a hugger. And she's really, into flirting with men and using, I guess, some kind of weird pseudo-sexuality and just overly aggressive and just overly flirtatious. I talked about this Scorpio thing, right? And, possibly a beta sex kitten thing. But it isn't like she doesn't like men, right? It isn't like that she's not into men. Like, that's something, I don't bad for the other team just yet. That's something that feminist women said who are just tired of men. Men breaking their hearts, men fucking cheating on them, right? Men abusing them, right? She's not someone like that. She's not some bitter housewife, right? She's a 25-year-old girl. I'm not, get ready to give up on men yet. But I'm willing, I'm open to it. If you're saying I gotta, you can save the world like Alex Jones, we need you, Jones. Go suck a ding dong, right? So, like, and Alex Jones saying that as well, right? Because people don't talk like that. People don't say, I don't bad for the other team just yet. Not a 25-year-old girl to a 15-year-old girl. I mean, who do you know has said that? Who have you ever heard in your life of a real person said that they were thinking about switching teams, right? Well, I don't know, fucking know, these fucking women folk, man. I don't know, like this, like whoever says that, right? Like, even in a joking way. And you don't say that to a 15-year-old girl. It's a weird fucking thing to say, especially when there's a flirtatious aspect to you. So, the hardest thing to figure out is what people's intent is, because people don't even know it themselves. Like, people do shit all the time and they have no idea why they do it. They have these compulsions. They have these things, that uncontrolled thoughts and uncontrolled urges and uncontrolled behaviors that they don't even know where it come from. Like, their past life things, as well as things that are, buried trauma from this life and, subconscious bullshit. People do shit all the time. Self-harm in ways, like not cut themselves, but, run into walls and, do things to self-sabotage. People don't understand why they can't win, like why they can't succeed in life. Like, there's something blocking them. There's some self-hatred that keeps on, they keep on fucking up over and over again, right? The finish line's right in front of them, and they do these stupid fucking things to self-sabotage, and no one knows why, and they certainly don't know why. So it's really hard to understand why people do what they do when people themselves don't know what they do, right? But Erica Kirk is a fucking, she's a flirtatious, very, I don't call it sexual because it's, it's just very forward. I mean, it's like, it's hard to really describe what that is, right? I mean, it's provocative, there's various words. I mean, I guess you could call it sexual. Laughing and giggling and all these things, but she, also, based in these tweets and other things, it extends to women as well, right? She's very forward, she's very, very flirtatious, she's very, like the way she was being with Nicki Minaj, telling her she loves her, and, we love you, and I know your heart, and this. You don't know her heart, you don't know anything fucking about her, right? You know her fucking degraded rap music, and you know her recent conversion to being some kind of a right-wing sort of person. But that's all you know. You don't know anything more than that. What the fuck are you talking about, right? And so, like, again, understanding what makes her tick is a lot harder than just seeing patterns of behavior. And this, this is part of that pattern. Very forward, very flirtatious, very complimentary, very, no boundaries and these things. And so, and maybe, she swings both ways. I mean, that's a legitimate component to that personality configuration, right? Like her being, just completely sexualized, right? This beta sex kitten, someone who's been mind controlled and the rest of it. All right, I was going to go look through some comments, but I want to get this video done for today. and then I'll continue on. I'll do those things tomorrow. I was going to talk a little bit about my weird, stuff that went on in the holistic. Maybe I'll, do that tomorrow, I think. Anyways, but that's good for now. Okay, Wednesday, February 18th. I was going to finish this video last night with the voiceover you just heard. That was going to be it. But, I thought about this. I meditate in the morning, and information will come to me, and there's things that I left out. There's a comment I want to get to, which is important to all this. So this whole section, and then kind of, wrapping up all the other things that I've shown you today. The people who voted and supported and enthusiastically endorsed Trump, you supported a pedophile, like a fucking bad one, like a fucking Jeffrey Epstein bestie, Jeffrey Epstein supporter. He's a pedo and a pedo supporter and all the things. Like that's what Trump is, right? And, for these people who are still trying to make excuses for him, that he's being compromised and blackmailed or whatever it is, or he's just trying to be loyal to his friends, whatever the fucking thing that you're trying to say that making him not want to release the Epstein files, it was always about him. Everything's always about him. He's a fucking narcissist. He's a demon. He's a fucking demon, right? Like this is what a demon looks like. And so, like I said, you can say he's doing God's work by destroying a demonic system unintentionally. Yeah, sure, okay, unintentionally. But what he is a person, what he's presenting in the show is a demon, and you supported him. Like a lot of you Christian, mostly not people here now who watch my shows, but these people who, all these people, like whether they're, pundits and they're acting in a self-serving way, or, these people who are social media people who are think that this was what was in their best interest, or they fully bought into it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene seemed to, whatever it is, right? Whatever your reasoning for doing it, that's what you did, right? And, you're a fucking demon supporter. You propped up a demon. Many Christians propped up a demon, like a fucking antichrist demon, like someone who's going against God's will, and you fucking supported the shit out of him, right? You gave him money. You destroyed relationships over it, all the stuff that I talked about earlier. Disrupted your family over fucking a demon, right? You dumb fucked your way into whatever wishful thinking you had, whatever desperation you had to support this motherfucker. That's what you did. In the Sajmark system that I do, and really it's not that. It's just spirituality. That's just your relationship with God. You have these situations, like it's taught in the Sajmark system, but it's just how you live. It's how you're supposed to live. And you make mistakes. You get yourself into a bad situation, right? Because of whatever. We talk about some scars, past impressions. If you were an alcoholic in a past life, you're going to be an alcoholic in this life. So you get these things. It shows you're fucked up. Like shows you're a piece of shit. You're whatever. You have weaknesses. You have character flaws. Whatever it is. Like it shows you. Your life shows you. You make mistakes, and then you have to look at yourself and say, what's inside of me that's self-sabotaging? What's inside of me that's hurting myself and hurting people I love and all these things? What's inside of me that's making me fucked up, like is making me, into a bad person in this area, or someone making bad decisions, or getting me into bad relationships, right? Or whatever it might be, so that you can remove it. Like, what is life showing me? That I have hatred inside me. So remove the hatred, right? Remove the fear, remove the, remove the whatever, the addiction, remove the stuff inside you. These some scars, these patterns that block me from seeing the fucking truth. Why can't I see the truth? Why do I not want to see the truth? Why do I lie to myself and tell myself that Trump is a good person when he so clearly obviously isn't? Master Chargy was telling this story about, in India, divorce is just like frowned upon. And here was this old guy that he knew, he was kind of an elder and whatever he was. And the guy had been married 4 times, and the guy came to see him. And the guy said to him, yeah, I'm married my 4th wife. And he goes, yeah, I heard, And Chargy went on to tell the story that he married the same person 4 times, right? Just a different person, like a different, individual, but the same personality configuration, the same problems, the same issues. So if you don't change, it'd be okay if you got divorced once and you realized, what your issues were, right? I've talked about my ex, who was somebody who was sexually, according to her story, sexually and emotionally and physically abused by her parents, who were, wealthy elitist type people, one percenters. And, she was a nightmare to live with. And, she was, just a disaster, psychologically broken, someone who had showed signs of split personalities or whatever, or either that or just, a victim are us, a victim are us type of person, right? Like a Toys R Us victim are us. Like just someone who was like almost like a professional victim, right? And, I realized that whatever flaws I had, whatever issues I had, there was no way that I could have ever been in a relationship with someone this broken and have it be successful. So what attracted me to this situation? Like what was inside of me that made this happen? Well, I knew what it was. Like there's things that got pulled out of it. Things that got pulled out of me, a negativity, like a bitterness towards God, some other things in my, system, character flaws and things that I was shown by the situation, which, I had to get rid of. Like I had to, get rid of those things and replace them with better things, right? So that I could have, a successful marriage like I have now, right? Because, I couldn't have had one before. There was things inside of me that I needed that certain circumstance to show me, yeah, you have to correct these things, right? You remove these things and replace them with good things, replace them with the things you need. And one of those things was gratitude, which I'm going to come back to when I read the comment. Like, that's why I always say be grateful, because gratitude is the key to a successful life, but we'll come back to that, right? And so, in terms of, like, people have either something inside of them that is blocking their success, or they don't have the capacity, right? They don't have the capacity for abstract thought. The situation they have in their life is too complex for them. It's beyond their ability to understand, beyond their ability to rise up to. So you have these two things. You have people with baggage, and you have people who lack capacity, or both. Like you have baggage and you lack the capacity. And so, God can give you the capacity if you reach up. Like anything that you need, you can be given, right? So you can, that's like a choice to evolve. You realize I'm not enough. Like this is beyond me. I have a problem that's beyond me. I have a situation that's beyond me. Help me, rise up to it, right? Help me, develop the capacity, develop the, and you can be given that. Like you can be made smarter. You can be made, it's more about spirituality and more about awareness and consciousness, but you can be given anything, like everybody who has those things now, who comes into this life with those things. Like there's some people who come in with more, capacity. They have more potential to access because they've developed it in previous existences. They've had spiritual lives in the past. They have had, whatever, successful relationships. Like anything that you've had in a past life, you can access in this life, right? Anything you've been able to achieve in the past, you can achieve in this life. But, there was a time where you did it for the first time. There was a life where you did it for the first time. There was a situation. So capacity can be given, and you can see it. Like you can step into something, right? You can step into a job that you're overwhelmed by, that you don't have the, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the, whatever it is to do the job, right? And you have to reach up and become that. You have to step into it, right? You have to learn how to be a champion. You have to learn how to be successful. You have to learn how to, embrace these inner qualities that you either have that are in, latent form, that this situation is going to pull out of you, or that are going to be something you have to create, and you have to create in yourself, right? So this is all, part of spiritual life. This is what you're supposed to be doing with your life, right? Most people don't. They just, they don't get themselves in a situation where they're overwhelmed beyond their capacity and they have to rise up. And you can always have God, like, take your place, have God do the work for you. Like, that's the ultimate, like that's the Sajmark teaching, where you have the thought that it's God doing the work and not you. You have this, what's called constant remembrance, where you have this idea that it's God doing the work in your place, that it's God living your life, and that God has God has everything. God has everything at His disposal. So when you think about your soul and you think about divinity doing the work and not you, like you're limited by your capacity, but God has infinite capacity. So these are things that that you can do. There's no excuses, right, for not being able to find into yourself what you need, to solve a situation and to navigate the obstacles and things that you have in your life. So, the capacity can be given and the qualities can be given. Other people have these qualities. Why can't you? Like other people are successful. Why can't you be successful? So in that, to just for this mundane example, for all those dumb fucks that voted for Trump, and you now realize, okay, this guy's a fucking creep, a pedophile, a demon. He's a bad person. And why did I do it? Why did I fall for this? Did I want to just have community with my other people? The people who were around me, the people who were, did I just go along with the crowd? Did I have the inability to think for myself? What made me lie to myself and not see which was so obvious there what is so obvious there to be seen? What is so, what's just standing right out front of you? Why did I think this guy was something that he wasn't, right? And so you have to ask those questions. You have to go inside and find out what was inside of you that it inhibited your ability to see which was so obvious to see, right? Like each person has to do that. And it's not, making mistakes isn't the problem. It's not figuring out what you have to do to change to stop making the same fucking mistake over and over again. God showed me that I have a flaw here I have to deal with. And so there's that. So in that, there was this comment I wanted to read that went along with this. And so I think this is it here. So the person says, some distant relic of my former self laughs at the idea of calling up my Memphis preceptor, which is the person who does the sittings and the Sajmark, now the Heartfulness. I'll explain that more in a second. Who flipped out on me when I mentioned Fraudji dissing Charji. Fraudji is this guy Daji, Kamlesh Patel. Charji was the third master of the system. And saying, hey, here Fraudji's literally giving you and me the third degree separation from Epstein award. I think it's the second degree of separation, right? So what this verse is talking about is there's these preceptors who are given, who give these sittings, right? These meditative sittings where transmission and cleaning is given. You sit face to face and, you meditate, and the preceptor acts as a conduit for this energy to flow through them. And, the third master of the system, Jarji, was, he had a disciple, or he had a successor in this guy Daji, and Daji just completely was ungrateful and has undermined his, who's been jealous of him, Jarji, and has found every possible way to sort of disrespect him and erase him, just erase all of his work, all of his, everything that he did, pretend he didn't exist, right? And, this is a huge problem. And I'm going to talk about the preceptors and the people who do the meditation in a moment, their inability. But, I've talked about this significantly. That Charji said there's only one sin in Sajmarg, and that's ingratitude. And there's not really, any sins, but ingratitude is the worst thing that you can have. And, every person needs a good teacher. They need somebody who's like an evolved person, whether it be a spiritual guru, a master, or somebody who's your teacher. Guru means teacher, but somebody, a mentor. People need a mentor. It could be, a grandparent. It could be, your parents. It could be an older sibling. It could be, a teacher, a coach, right? Somebody who, helps you be successful. Somebody who, takes you as takes your raw abilities and helps you channel those raw abilities into success, right? There's people like me who don't do well with other people telling them how to do it or whatever it is, but have to sort of self-learn, right? There's people who, have either issues with authority or whatever it is. But even in that, your life is made so much easier by people who have already successfully navigated whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life. and people who can see you and look at you and see what you need and help you get that. And a spiritual master will manifest your life circumstances, adjust your life circumstances, and help guide you and help pull out of you what you have inside of you to help you be successful and help you connect to God and navigate your spiritual path and act as an example. So it's the ultimate in that kind of mentor and guru, teacher. It's the ultimate. Somebody who's achieved something spiritually and then can help you navigate your path and is just there with you the whole way, right? The idea of a Sherpa. Master Charji talked about Babaji being a Sherpa who would tie himself to you and help you climb the mountain. And the Sherpa might not be educated, might not be sophisticated, not someone that you might be some rich American guy going up the mountain, successful billionaire or something, and you got this guy who's just a local person, but he's, without him, you'll die. He ties himself to you, he risks his life so that, he can navigate you up the mountain, right? Mount Everest or something. People need maps. People need, direction and things. And then you can figure it out for yourself, but it's the first person has to figure it out. It takes a lot longer, a lot more effort, and a lot more life force than, the people who have the path carved out for them already, right? And so, like, it saves you a lot of time and energy, like I was talking before. And so having these people in your life, mentors, these, individuals, real teachers, people that really benefit you. You have so many people take advantage of you, so many people who guide you in the wrong direction, give bad examples, your parents, your elders in society, your politicians, all these people who show you what not to do, right? Show you, like just bring you down and do damage to you, give you bad advice, give you whatever it is. I dated this nurse, and her mom said, never fall in love, never risk, never risk getting hurt. Always settle. Like literally said these things, right? Somebody who, when I met her, I was like, oh my God, what a fucking disaster this person is, right? She was like 350 pounds, like she was, morbidly obese and just depressed area, depressed house with a horrible husband. It's just, just exuding failure, right? But people will guide you in the wrong direction and then leave you with baggage and leave you with shit that makes it harder for you to achieve what you have to achieve. And you have to repair the damage, and you have to rework your personality, your indoctrination by a system, by a religion that's telling you the wrong thing, cutting you off from God, like all the things, right? You have all these people that do damage, that are thwarting your abilities, that are suppressing your full capacity, your mastery of yourself, you're becoming what God wants you to become. There's all these obstacles in the way, and all these people that are, they are, teaching you one thing, or, traumatizing you, or whatever the fuck it is that they do. I mean, whether they're malevolent or not, whatever's going on with them, they've just failures. There's a worldwide celebration of failure of human life, right? Of not figuring out what you're here, why you're here, and how to be successful. Like, that's what's happened. You just have it all around you. Like, so many people going in the wrong fucking direction, being bad examples, and not doing what they're supposed to do, lost, not connected to the divinity within them, their souls. They don't have a purpose, and they're just, want you to go down the same path, right? They want you to indulge in their, things that are like their addictions and their things. Everybody, misery loves company. Everybody wants people to do what they're doing, and, gamble, and, drink, and, just be a lazy piece of worthless shit, and they want you to go along with it. And then if you try to ascend out of that, right, they bring you down, right? So, there was some interview like maybe 10 years ago that I saw where LeBron James and Kevin Durant were talking about how where they grew up, the impoverished urban areas, the collective people there, they, as soon as you start succeeding, you start to, be able to get out of that, the poverty and and the the low level existence, they try to pull you back in. They insult you. They like it's like you're offending them by your success. Like they're realizing that they could have done something similar or whatever it is. But they celebrate your failure. They celebrate like if somebody. I mean, I saw Chris Rock talk about this. That that if they'll celebrate your like somebody who just got out of prison or jail or something like that, but won't celebrate when somebody graduates and gets a master's degree or something like that, right? Like people celebrate fucking, mediocrity or failure or things that, are familiar to them. But when somebody is, you know, succeeding, they immediately attack them. I talk about like how if you get a promotion at work and you're working with all your buddies, and then you now have to be their boss, and it destroys the relationship because people. I mean, you think your friends would want to support you and help you, but then they're trying to take advantage. They think, oh, now we got a boss, is our friend, and we can fuck off and not do our job. And the boss, so the person, the boss is like, you guys are my friends. I thought you'd want to help support my success and work harder, but instead you want to take advantage of me and the situation, right? You see this happen all the time. Somebody wins the lottery and they lose all their friends. People want to pull you back down, right? So, when you have somebody who's a guru, somebody like this that can elevate you and bring you to, your real existence, your real purpose for your existence, like I had when I found the Sajmark system, or it found me, in Master Chargy, who, he worked tirelessly to help each person on a spiritual level and every possible level become what they were meant to become. And so when you have somebody like that, the reverence that you have to feel for them, the gratitude, I mean, it's just something, tears come to your eyes, like this feeling, like you just, how blessed you are, right? That this person graced you with their presence and took pity on you. And this culture, the Indian culture, which is so, internalized and has so much, I mean, again, over 1 billion people, but it's in the bones of the country to have people ascend spiritually. Like it's something that's in their, that's in their genetics and in their, their whole everything there. And so, and it's rewarded. It's one of the few places in the world where you become a saint and it's rewarded. Of course, there's lots of people who are fakes and gurus, like frauds, quacks, people who are just posers, but they're, and that sucks that they get celebrated too, but, that's just the way things are. But it's in the culture to have this, lineage of, true spirituality, and, you have these succession of masters that can teach, leave behind a quality disciple. And, there's just a reverence for it. And they have a reverence for, people of authority, elders, like this, it's woven into the culture to respect your elders. In a way, we just don't respect our elders here in America. We're like, fuck you guys, go move to Florida, get the fuck away from me. I want as much distance from you as possible. People don't respect their parents, and, they don't deserve respect often. It's like we have people who are just failures. My wife and I are talking about the boomers, all that stuff, and, okay, boomer, like boomers who are just stealing the future away from their, from their grandkids, these things, right? So, the selfishness and all of it, like all the way that happened, especially these liberal hippie boomers who, they created great change in the beginning when they were young, and then they sold out to, whatever it was, corporate power, and they became selfish and disconnected, and, they don't have a religion, they don't have a, some sort of code, they don't give a shit about their, whatever, like, what I'm talking about. So, when you have somebody like that, and you have a culture like that, when Daji disrespected Charji, he broke the connection. You can't have ingratitude, and that's what made him fall. And, all these people who are doing the system, and they used to like weep when they left Charji's presence, and Charji did so much for them, right? Did so much in terms of elevating them. And they just watched this Daji shit all over his legacy, and just was the worst kind of person. And they can't deal with it. Like, so they have this cultural issue, the Indian people have this cultural issue where they respect authority, and they respect, there's the hierarchy, and there's the caste system, and there's the, respect the elders and the family. There's some of it's a meshment, like some of it's good, but some of it just goes too far. But and respect the guru and be grateful for this, spiritual person. Like there's just, and you don't question. You just, just an obedience to it, and which is good if the person's good, right? If it's the person is, of a higher nature and is a true spiritual master, a true saint, and yeah, it'd be great if you can obey that person and listen to them, and but they don't really listen. Like they don't read the books. They don't change their rituals. Like it was a constant problem. Like they, externally they're all like, yes, master, this kind of thing, but internally they don't. There's a hardness there, and they didn't change and adapt to the Sajmark teachings that were different from what they grew up with, right? They were more truthful and they were more dynamic. And so, some of these people are really saintly people. Like they really were much better at doing the meditation. They're much better people than I was, just a lot of them. But they couldn't fucking make this change. They couldn't see what was right fucking in front of them. When he's just telling everybody, I'm a piece of shit who is ungrateful for, somebody who rises to the level that this guy Daji rose to. He rose to the highest level of spirituality because of what Master Charji did for him. And he's saying, no, it wasn't him. The higher, Babaji and the previous masters, the divine hierarchy worked on him. He says in one talk that he was worked on, and despite Charji didn't know about it. Like they bypassed Charji and he was being worked on by the higher developed souls. And then in another talk, he talks about how only the living master matters, and from the brighter world they can do nothing, right? Like he's contradicting himself, which people do, But the master of the system, there has to be some rhyme or reason to it, right? Like the master of the system might say one thing to one person, something different to somebody else, but some of these things are spiritual principles and things that with both things can't be true, right? Like you can't be getting worked on from the brighter world and then say only the living master can do something. Like you can't exclude the living master when it had to do with you, and then say when you're the master, oh no, only I can do something, right? And so, but there's also other things where he's contradicted the previous masters of the system, in terms of their teachings, doing all kinds of things, and making bad decisions like being with Deepak Chopra. But then the number one thing is the ingratitude that he has for his master, right? Which is obvious. And, the only reason to accept him as the new master and president of the system is because he was endorsed by the previous one, right? That he's the chosen successor. Like that's carries a lot of weight. And when you then say, well, that guy didn't know what he was doing, when you negate the one thing that you have in your favor, and then there's all this evidence that you're messing up, right? If you say, well, that guy was full of shit, right? Then, well, you're the only reason we're thinking you're anybody is because you were his chosen successor. So if he didn't know what he was doing, then you can't, if your teacher was a failure, then the student is a failure as well, right? Your teacher can be great and the student can fail. But if the, teacher doesn't teach the correct things and isn't successful, and, it's like the artist. If the artist makes something, if it's a bad artist, then the artwork comes out poorly. And spirituality is more than anything else. The artwork can choose to be bad. The artwork can choose to fall. The artwork can choose to, to damage itself and make bad decisions. But the artist has to be impeccable. The artist has to be perfect, right, in terms of spirituality and creating a spiritual person. The hierarchy, the beings above the person have to be of impeccable nature, right? If there's any flaw in the teacher, then that's passed down to the student. He could practically do anything else in terms of these Indian people, in terms of their culture and the guru culture, and not be questioned. But, ingratitude towards his master is not one of them. In fact, the Sajmark system, the idea of the emergence of the master into the disciple is paramount, right? Every spiritual system wanted to have the essence of the previous master, whether it be Jesus or Krishna or Buddha. The Buddhists, the Buddha reincarnates over and over again, but that's a little bit different. But it's a similar idea that the essence of the soul is then imparted to all the people like everybody, all of Jesus' disciple got a piece of Jesus, some of his, his essence. His chief disciple, successor, would get, the essence to carry on, and that this would be passed down from one person to the next, right? The line of popes, that was the idea for the popes, right? Peter, and then the rest of them. And so, if you break that line by saying, hey, yeah, that last guy sucked, right? He didn't know what he was doing. He fell. Then you're breaking that succession, that line of succession, right? It's a huge problem. And certainly the Indian people growing up in the guru culture in India know about this. And yet they couldn't do anything about it. They have this problem, this issue. Many of them can see something's not right, it's off, but they don't know what to do about it. And they just can't. And not just the people in the, there's boomer hippies, there's all these people. And I was really disappointed by their inability to see what's in front of them. And they're not truthers. Like, they might be spiritual, but they're not truthers. Being a truther is only really good when, the kind of thing that we have now is when the system sucks. Otherwise, you're just a nuisance. You're somebody complaining about a good system, right? If the system sucks and the leadership are good, if you're someone always looking for conspiracies and looking for dirt, you're a problem, right? Like, this is, it should be obvious to everyone that would be the case. If we have a good system, you don't need truthers, right? If you have it's people seeking the truth is one thing, but people, looking for issues that don't exist and just causing problems, that is problematic. And so being a truther isn't, necessarily, a part of being a spiritual person. And sometimes you just got to accept what is. And that's a big part of the Sajmark system, accepting what is. Yeah, the system's not perfect and the leadership isn't perfect, but this is what we have. Like, this is what you've been given. This is the world you've chosen to be born in, and you have some work to do. So being a truther isn't always imperative. Like, you don't have to be one of us. Like, we all are maybe damaged or whatever we are, right, in terms of what we do. And not everybody can be a truther. You need sheeple. You need people who are just going to keep on going and plug away and not ask questions. Like, you totally need that in any system. You need people who, are not going to question authority, and they're going to do their job, and they're just going to do their best to keep the system rolling. And so, having said all that, though, when there is basically a crisis like we have in the Sajmark system, and, this master just craps out, and there wasn't any literary reference of what you do in that circumstance, like, it was never thought that this could happen. There was no ever preparation for it. All the stuff about him is, well, he's doing a great job, and, the whispers, the messages, any of these other things, right? And so, there's an issue that people have to deal with. They have to think for themselves. And you grow up in a culture that doesn't have that and puts a lot of weight on authority figures and elders and gurus and all these things. And, it just, there are people who are questioning it. There's this guy called the Dodgy Truther and these other people. And so, but they're kind of on the early stages of it. They're still thinking you could wake people up, like the stuff that you go through in the early stage of a truther. And then you realize, when the thing happened with Deepak Chopra, this guy Dodgy Truther was sending me stuff. And I said, well, what are the Abhyasis doing? They're not saying anything about it, right? The Deepak Chopra was, now being disgraced, and there's articles in India about him. Like, it's not like everybody knows about it, and he's completely linked to this guy Dodgy. Like, they partnered on some things, and they did a number of things together, and he wrote the foreword to one of Dodgy's books, and he's not the only person that's been disgraced, the Diaper Bob and these other people, which I've talked about. And so, but they just can't do it. And like, the same thing with the Trumpers and all these people. Like, it's hard to see. Well, I had a little health crisis in the middle of this thing, and usually I feel great when I'm doing the voiceovers. Like, I don't have any kind of heart palpitations or any kind of issues. Even if I have a migraine, it'll clear up. Like, usually when I do the voiceover, it's when I feel my best. When I'm making the videos, especially when I'm talking about things that are spiritual, there's just a harmony. And for some reason, my heart started racing. I went on a 2 or 3 hour thing, probably 3+ hours. It stopped, at first it was racing just a lot. And then after about an hour and stuff, and I calmed down, I meditated. It's still racing a little bit. I have an appointment with this holistic, guy. Hopefully, and I don't know if I took something that made it race. I'm going to check all that stuff. But, so if you don't hear from me, Hopefully it's just it's not a, I don't feel bad right now. I didn't really feel bad at all. Just that I recognized my heart was really beating fast, and tachycardia, I believe that's called. It wasn't a heart attack. It was, my gut was really swollen, and that I don't know how much that had to do with it. I had my hiatal hernia adjusted, where and again, I don't recommend things, but that's, the bloating I think is associated with my heart issues. I've had stomach bloating from COVID. Like every time I had COVID, there's this bloating stuff. But anyways, like I had this thing, and I don't know if it's just a spiritual thing or something. Just sometimes you have a healing crisis that results in something else. I was feeling really good. My heart is, I haven't been having the irregular heartbeats, and I felt like I was, getting better from that for the last week or so. But then there was this thing. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If what's going to happen today, I'm going to see this guy, and I'll probably do some kind of an update, even if I don't make a video. Like I don't feel bad. I mean, I feel fine now, but it's just I when I listen to my heartbeat, it's going faster than it should, but it's not racing like it was. So, and again, I don't know if I ate something or something like that, and there was a reaction to it, or I've had some issues, so there's something. But hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of it, and there'll be a. Anyways, I'll continue on. For those of you listening to the Journey series, this is, if you're listening to this in a Journey series, it's probably 4 or 5 days after this has happened. So I haven't made this into a Journey series video yet. So it's obviously there's going to be a, whatever's supposed to happen will happen. So I have full faith in that. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.